Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joined us here in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's day 320 of the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people, and now we will be talking about the situation in Kharkiv region. Joining us online is Oleh Syniehubov, the military governor of Kharkiv region. Good afternoon, Mr. Oleh. Good afternoon. Let's start with the most tragic events today, the shelling inflicted by Russia's in the village of Shevchenko. Was the situation there? Are the rescue works still in progress? Yes, there was a missile strike on Shevchenko in the morning. It's the Kupiansk district, which resulted in death of 2 people and 6 more injured. The units of the Ukrainian State Emergency Services are clearing the debris on the spot. One of the injured is a 10-year-old girl. She received the shrapnel injury of head and neck, and doctors are doing everything possible to save her life. Since the strike was inflicted near the market of the village, this is why it resulted in such a huge amount of casualties. There is no single military installation in that area. It's a peaceful small village, small settlement, and the purpose of Russian occupiers was the terror of our civilians and the casualties among the civilians. We know the Kharkiv region is constantly under strikes. So what's going on in other areas? Yes, we are being constantly shelled. All the settlements along the border, specifically in the northern part, in the northeastern part, Vovchansk, Kopyansk are all the time under shellings. The settlements of Syniehubov and Kharkiv regions, and actually the front line goes along the Kopyansky region. The warfare is quite active in that area, and the civilian population keeps suffering all the time. We keep evacuating the civilians from there. On the 28th of November, we evacuated 580 people from that area. After the shellings, after the strikes like today, don't people want to resume the process of evacuation to live for more safe areas? We keep communicating this information to the people, but in view of the missile strikes by the occupiers, we cannot say that it's safer elsewhere in Kharkiv region, because there is education process going on in Kharkiv online. We don't have offline education process anywhere, because the time between launch of the rocket and the hit is 30 to 40 seconds, so we cannot assert it's safe anywhere in Kharkiv region. People submit applications and they leave. If they apply to us with a request to leave, we perform the evacuation, specifically from the settlements in the gray zone or from those where the battles are in progress. I'm reminding you there are 29 settlements under temporary occupation, and 3 more, we call them such, that are in conditional gray zone. The installations of critical infrastructure are also under constant shelling by the occupiers. Have you managed to stabilize the power grid lately? Yes, as to the power grid, we have scheduled rolling power shutdowns in place. We have 12 queues, 12 turns in Kharkiv region, and we implement this schedule. And in fact, we don't always use them, because the inhabitants of Kharkiv region keep complying with the limits allocated by Ukrenergo, and we have a number of resilience stations for cases of damage on our critical infrastructure. The enemy keeps striking the critical infrastructure, but our power technicians keep stabilizing the situation almost 24/7. What's the situation with heat supply in the region? talking about the city of Kharkiv itself, after the last rocket strike, all the houses were connected to heat supply. I mean, those which were not destroyed in northern Saltivka, because after the last rocket strike, 1,250 apartment blocks ended up without heating after the last rocket strike. Now they're all reconnected. As to the deoccupied territories where we planned to reconnect the heating supply, we managed to do it, we made it. We were able to resume the operation of the critical infrastructure within the shortest terms possible, but it's a different story for each settlement. For example, in Kupiansk, all the boiler rooms are operating. Meanwhile, Kupiansk is under constant shelling, and there is a huge scale of destruction there. In Izum, there are 6 boiler rooms that we were planning to reconnect. However, around 18 more are still destroyed. As to Vovchansk, for example, the heating supply is mostly performed with the help of electric power supply, because the heat supply was coming from Russian Federation previously, and obviously it stopped now. Mr. Oleh, can you share with us what were the main challenges you were facing after the occupation of Kharkiv region? First of all, it's because the Kharkiv region was being liberated in quite an intense manner within very short terms, short periods. It's very good. It testifies the success of our armed forces, and immediately the issue of request from our people arisen promptly. So we reconnected the power supply, we resumed the power supply, because everything, the functioning of all other infrastructure systems depends on it, and including the banking system, food, general stores, and so on and so forth. But we are facing such challenge as the demining, because the Kharkiv region is recognized as the most densely mined, and on a daily basis there are explosions. The people get blown on booby traps and landmines, including cases where people find the landmines in their land plots. So we keep reminding that the curbs, the forests, and even the backyards of the people should be considered as the potential hazard. And in case people identify any explosive devices or just unrecognized devices, unidentified devices, please report to the Ukrainian State Emergency Service, and don't use cell phones near such devices, because it can result in detonation. Don't cover them, don't touch them, don't even come close to them. That's very, very important. I can't help but asking about Kharkiv. What does Kharkiv look like now? What do you document in terms of migration of people? Do people keep leaving, or do people start coming back? What's going on with the operation of municipal transport, and obviously what's with the work of the businesses, because we understand that the municipal government finds it difficult to survive without business working properly. People keep coming back to Kharkiv and to the occupied territories. According to our calculations, there is more than 1,100,000 people residing in Kharkiv now. As to the operation of the communal services, all of them work without problems now. Even during such difficult times like this, people try to resume their businesses. I'm talking about small and medium-sized business. As to the big businesses, some enterprises were relocated. Some of them tried to work under these complicated conditions, under the threat of rocket attacks. They keep trying to operate, to pay taxes, to pay salaries, which is quite important for us. Besides, I already mentioned education process. Around 225,000 students are studying online in Kharkiv region. Our higher educational institutions keep working, and they cover the higher educational institutions keep covering the request, the demand for teachers with their higher grade students. And obviously our people trust in the armed forces. They wait for the liberation of the other temporarily occupied territories in our region. Thank you for this information. We have questions in the studio, please. Good afternoon, Olga Opanasenko, Ukrinform. Could you please tell us, have you calculated the losses of the Kharkiv region agrarians resulting from Russian aggression? And do you have any examples of those who's already filed cases against Russian Federation regarding such losses? Well, thank you. That's a very good question regarding the losses inflicted by Russian Federation. It's more than 14,000 destroyed buildings. It's hundreds of the businesses, including agrarian businesses. According to our approximate calculations, about 40% of the agrarian lands are not subject to work due to their dense mining, due to active warfare going on in those areas. A part of the business facilities are destroyed. I can tell you a number of such, like in Chikalovsk, for example. They had one of the biggest meat processing factories. It was one of the biggest in Ukraine, and the business left because, in fact, the facility was destroyed. And there are dozens of such enterprises, and talking about the small and medium sized, it's like maybe thousands of them. We have examples of businesses filing suits against Russian Federation with the demand for reclamation, for compensation, but we understand that there is no mechanism set out for reparations and compensation. Thank you, sir. Do we have any more questions in the studio? No more question. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm reminding you, joining us was Oleh Syniehubov, the military governor of Kharkiv region. Right now, our team is working for the schedule of briefings for tomorrow, so bear with us, trust in our armed forces, and let's work together for the victory. Glory to Ukraine.